Baroness Bennett of Manor Castle.
I beg leave to ask the question that appears under my name on the order paper.
My Lords, the Commission will examine the broader aspects of the Constitution in depth and develop proposals to restore trusts in our institutions and in how our democracy operates. We anticipate a wide degree of engagement, and the Government will ensure that civil society's valuable role in informing the work of the Commission is not overlooked. Careful consideration is needed on the composition and focus of the Commission, and further announcements will be made in due course.
I thank the Minister for his answer. On the question of the focus, the City of London Corporation enjoys many special privileges and perks in the UK Constitution. For example, the Corporation has a unique right of proposing private legislation via its own parliamentary agent, the Remembrancer. Will the Minister commit that the Constitutional Review will consider the position of the City of London, the last rotten borough that gives so much power to our banking sector, and bring the City of London into line with all other local authorities?
My Lords, I understand completely the noble Baroness's desire for clarity on the issues she refers to, but I'm afraid it's too soon for me to be able to provide her with answers, much as I should ideally like to. No decisions have been taken on either the composition or the focus of the Commission. Once we're able to make an announcement, we will do so.
My Lords, may I suggest to my noble friend that in order to enhance the status of the Commission, it be made a Royal Commission. Alternatively, and here I may be preempting a point made by my noble friend Lord Cormac, it be made of the subject of a Speakers' Conference, as suggested by my noble friend in his speech on the debate of the gracious speech last week.
My Lords, I have read my noble friend's speech of last week, and the points he made have been registered. I can only say again that no decisions have been taken on the precise form that the Commission should take. However, the most important thing is for it and the work that it does to command public confidence.
My Lords, the noble Lord quotes from the
disillusionment to which the noble Lord the Minister refers. And given that no plans have yet been made for exactly how the Commission will work, but given also the success of citizens' assemblies in Ireland and France to rebuild trust in democratic institutions, might the Minister think it a good idea to involve such citizens' assemblies in the work of the work of the Commission?
I'm grateful to the Right Reverend Prelate, and that idea is certainly in the mix.
My Lord, the Minister quotes from the briefing on the Queen's speech on careful consideration being needed, which seems to suggest that very little thought has yet been given to this. Will that careful consideration on the composition and focus of this Commission take place within government, or in cooperation with other parties, or with interested groups outside government and politics altogether? Is that the wider consideration that's intended?
My Lords, I wish I could help the noble Lord. It is simply too soon for me to be able to comment on that. As we heard in the debate in your Lordship's House last Wednesday, the subject matter under the umbrella heading of the Constitution is potentially very broad. So decisions are therefore needed on exactly how broad the Commission's remit should sensibly be.
Since the remit is still unsure and hasn't yet been decided, will the Minister ask that included in the remit should be the consideration of a federal constitution for the United Kingdom before we see the break-up and the removal of Scotland and Northern Ireland, which is imminent, unless we do have some kind of federal constitution?
I will make sure that the noble Lord's point is duly noted.
As my noble friend is aware, this Commission generated some excitement in your Lordship's House last Wednesday when we debated it. If, as my noble friend has said, this project is still in its formative stage, could we at least have a debate in your Lordship's House before it is set up, so your Lordships might influence its constitution, its remit, and hopefully make sure that it is a great success?
I shall be glad to inform the usual channels of my noble friend's very good suggestion. However, I would just counsel on the fact that at some point the government will give an indication of the scope and remit of the Commission that it intends should happen. And I think within that informed context it would be best for your lordships to present their views.
My Lords, has not the main threat to democracy and human rights of late come from the government, as in its attempt to silence this Parliament? And what guarantee, therefore, do we have that this Commission will not be an attempt to silence the courts and further to try to undermine the rule of law?
My Lords, if the aim of establishing a commission is, as is the case, to restore trust in our institutions and our democracy, it is axiomatic that the Commission itself will need to command public confidence, both from its membership and the way that it operates, and the government is wholly mindful of that.
My Lords, could I thank my noble friend for the way he's answered these questions, but could he reflect on the fact that we have recently elected a citizens' assembly? It's called the House of Commons.
My noble friend makes an extremely pertinent point.
My Lords, the noble Lord has twice, I think, now referred to restoring trust in the institutions. Can I put it to him, we don't restore trust just by changing the structures of institutions. It's about engagement. And when I fully endorse Noble Lord Young's comment, but I do think we have to take into account, and I know it's at very early stages, but our constitution hangs together not as individual bodies, but how these institutions relate to each other, and changing the powers of one affects the other, whether that's local government and parliament or both houses of parliament.
I wouldn't disagree in the slightest with the noble Baroness. The Commission will wish to engage with civil society, as I said earlier. The important thing will be for that engagement to be both wide and deep.